So I'm going to hand you over to Benjamin Bykowski, who's going to talk to us about Adventures Beyond the Page Fold. I've been looking over his shoulder a little bit this morning, and I'm looking forward to this one. So here we go.
There it is.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay? Check, check. 1, 2. Testing. Is that good? All right. Thank you, Ian and Eric. You guys have done a great job so far this morning. Welcome to this session here, Adventures Beyond the Pagefold. Just to get a couple of things out of the way real quick. I've got some stuff up here that I'm going to give away at the end of the talk. So if you want to tweet me at Sirius_B, hashtag SurTrack, I'll randomly pick somebody that gets me there. And if you don't use the whole Twitter thing, shoot me an email. I'll check both, and I'll pick one from each so that we can give these away. We've got Mythbusters Collection 10 here, as well as the latest, the reissued Don't Make Me Think by Steve, who's an excellent book. If you don't have it, if you don't win it, I still highly recommend picking a copy up. That interests you. Okay, that out of the way. So the first thing I wanted to go over is to just start with kind of level set something here. A lot of the inspiration behind this talk came from the concepts of debunking conventional wisdom. If you read it, or if you've ever read Freakonomics and the Stevens, they do a good job of this, and I've got a little video of theirs. Malcolm Gladwell, also great guy, does a lot of good stuff. His latest book, David and Goliath, does a lot of this, challenging conventional wisdom, and that's kind of what got this talk going. So
I think conventional wisdom is all the stuff that your mom told you that you believed wholeheartedly because you thought your mom had all the answers, and then you grew up and you kind of realized maybe your mom didn't have all the answers, but you still believe all the stuff she told you because you don't have anything better to go with. And so a lot of what we do is about taking the things our moms told us, and instead of saying, yeah, my mom must have been right about that, instead of saying, well, wait a second, is there any way we can go on the data and figure out whether that's really true? And what we do over and over and over is we go, we find data, and it turns out that what moms all over the world have been telling us, well, they were just making that up or learning that from their moms, and they never had any evidence in the first place.
Yeah, they're conditioned like, any human beings by like fear, wanting to protect their kids, like, car seats. Like, what good mom or dad doesn't want to, protect your kid as well as you can in the car, so we buy these expensive car seats and we spend all this time trying to get them attached right. We go to the police station, get the police to do them, and it turns out the data shows that like even if they're put in right, it seems like they don't do very well. They don't provide much. They don't hurt you, but they don't. For mortality and serious accidents compared to seatbelts for little kids, even though they don't really fit the kids that well at all, they're not made for kids. The car seats are not this magic bullet, but people want to believe in that because it seems sensible. So like when we do things like that, some people get upset with us because they say we're trying to kill children, right? We're trying to tell people to go around driving with their kids hanging out the window. We're very much not that. We have a bunch of kids and we try not to kill them every day. And but the point is if you believe in these things that everybody thinks are good, and then they turn out not to be good, I think it's our job to tell people that they're not so good. And if you're really worried about child safety in cars or global warming or bacterial infections in hospitals, the first thing to do is put down the conventional wisdom and figure out where the actual problem is, then figure out how to solve it.
thank you, Stephen, or if you really care about good UX design. So we're going to go over 5 classic UX myths. Some of these may be familiar to you. In fact, a lot of them I'm sure are familiar to you. The 3 Clicks of Destiny, Adventures Beyond the Pagefold, that's one of my favorites, by the way. Faceted Navigation and Doom. This new one, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Homepage, is one I just worked on recently. And then we'll wrap up with Lost in White Space. And then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for discussion at the end, questions. All right, so the first one, the 3 Clicks of Destiny, also known as Everything Must Be 3 Clicks from the Homepage. How many of you have heard of this one before? Okay, yeah, it's a common one. So where does this come from? This is probably one of the oldest myths in user experience design, and it really is born out of the idea that everything needs to be imminently reachable with 3 clicks. It sounds reasonable. It's known by everybody, and in the work that I do, working with clients. It's not uncommon to have, C-level CTO, CEO types tell me everything has to be 3 clicks, like they've been studying this their whole life and they really know. So I hear it a lot, and it, the thing of it is, it seems reasonable. Like Stephen said, it seems reasonable. Everything should, 3 clicks. Come on, it ought to be that way. And so that's kind of where this starts. But the guys over at UIE, they did a study. Because they thought, well, yeah, it seemed reasonable, and they wanted to see, like, what was this like? Is this really happening? And, with 44 different users, they did more than 620 tasks and 8,000 clicks, okay? And they tracked all this data, and here's what they found. They found that everybody that they looked at, whether or not they were getting to their goal or missing their goal because of good or bad UX design or good or bad direction given by them, because they purposely sent some people down the wrong path, it turns out that they clicked on average almost exactly as much as people that were making their way and finding what they needed. And this was really surprising to them. They thought they'd see at least some variance, but it was almost identical. And in some cases, when they dug deeper, they found that the people that were really, when they removed the goal, the page that they were trying to get to on purpose so they couldn't get there, it turns out they clicked even more. So there was no correlation between this idea of 3 clicks and actually making that a viable thing. And it got me thinking, I love to snowboard. And I was watching the X Games and I was thinking, this looks like a lot of fun and it'd be cool to travel and maybe I can give up this whole UX and client thing and I can just go and snowboard. How old is that guy anyway? So I got curious and I went on ESPN and I decided to take a look at what they have on this guy. So, I decided to go to the website, and when I got there, I thought, okay, where am I going to go first? Well, let's see. It's not going to be under the main sports. So, let's see. I'll have to go and check and see. Oh, wait, is it down here, somewhere down at the bottom? Maybe, there we go. Okay, there's 2 clicks there. All right, we only got 1 more click. What are we going to do? Okay, well, it's in Aspen. Okay, 4 clicks. Geez, oh, Pete, I still haven't gotten anywhere near. Now I'm at the results. We're getting, code yellow here now. We're getting further down. What are we going to do? Is 6 clicks going to take me there? Down here, there's the super pipe. What was that guy's name? Oh, gosh. Louis Vito. That's right. 7 clicks. Okay, and I finally get to this guy's page, and turns out he's 26, so I'm just going to give up on that whole thing. So, what do we want to say about this? I mean, do we think this is busted? Yeah. This is busted. There is, but here's the thing. As I go through each one of these, I did the research and tried to do as much investigation as possible. But really what I want to do is take each one of these and go, legends are born out of kernels of truth, little bits of information that actually are valuable, and that's where they start. It's not like people just make these up just to be jerks. So, what is it about the 3 clicks that's really important? And the things that I found is that it's not uncommon for people to express their frustration by saying they have to click a lot. It seems reasonable when I say, everything should be 3 clicks because what you're really saying is it should be easy for me to find what it is that I'm looking for. And so, therefore, I would advocate not the 3-click rule, but the 1-click rule. And that is to say that when you click, each click on a web page or in an app should get you somewhere. It should make you feel like you're making progress. It's like that reward system, getting people to say, like, you're on the right track. Or, here's where you are now. Here's some guideposts trying to get you to where you need to be. And that's called information set. And that's the kind of thing that you should be paying attention to. So if somebody tells you that something needs to be 3 clicks from the homepage, really what you want to be paying attention to is how good is their experience to get to what they need? How do we bring that information up from deeper within the website? All right, the next one here, Adventures Beyond the Page Fold. This is, like I said, one of my favorites, the page fold. This is notorious because it comes up all the time. It's one of the most common things that I hear in design feedback when somebody sees the design. And just to give it a little bit of history, we look at this. This is obviously a metaphor borrowed from papers. Back in the day when papers were the way that most information was disseminated, they were put into vending machines, and all you could see was the folded up front page of the paper inside the vending box. And so this idea translated over to, well, when people load a web page, all they can see is the fold, and they'll never scroll. And what are we going to do? And it's used all the time. I mean, people will tell you it has to be above the fold because it's so important. And okay, that's fine, but not everything can be important, and you have to give some discretion to get to other things on the site, and that's called content hierarchy and priority. And the thing of it is, I think that we really kind of do ourselves a disfavor if we're doing designs and then we're printing them out and mounting them to boards and bringing them to meetings, because it sets an unrealistic expectation with our stakeholders, because they look at this and they see a piece of printed material. And so of course you're going to start thinking, the page fold. So I think a little bit of that is on us a little bit. But again, I think that's also why it just continues to be perpetuated. So looking at the data, couple of things here. First, CX Partners, this company, they looked at more than 800 user sessions of usability studies, and they didn't just look at the page fold. They were looking at anything that they did a usability study on, but they had data within all of these that they could look at, and namely, that is, people that actually scrolled on a page. And what they found was that of the 800 sessions, only 3 had a problem. And you'll notice there's a little asterisk up there, because here's the problem with even that. They went back and they said, well, what's going on with these 3 outliers that we're seeing? And it turns out that in those cases, the design actually failed because the way that it was set up, it created what looked like was a false footer on the page. So people just didn't think that you could scroll, but not that they wouldn't scroll. And then looking at more of a quantitative view of things, ClickTail looked at more than 120,000 page views of analytics. Now what they found was that 9/10 of all the pages that they looked at had a scroll bar on them, meaning the content, there was some content below the fold on 9 out of 10 pages out of 120,000 pages. So it's pretty proliferate that you're seeing this, all over the place. And looking at people on those pages, more than 3/4 of them scroll. That's 3 out of 4, and 1 out of 4 scroll all the way to the bottom. Crazy. So the other thing is, go out into the real world and what do you see? And this is, you can use this to challenge anybody that tells you that everything has to be above the fold. If it's so important to have everything above the fold, why does some of the most popular websites in the world, Amazon.com, arguably the largest online retailer, or the BBC that spreads news throughout the world, I mean globally speaking, all of these sites, more than, and I measured the pixels on this, so more than 3/4 is below the fold. So if it's so bad, what are the people that people that are not smarter than me that are designing these websites? What are they doing? So I bring that up as an exhibit. So again, what do we think about this? Does it make sense? Is it busted? Yeah, this one again, busted. Sorry, but that just doesn't really hold water. Again, going back to like what we want to learn about this. So. What does this tell us? I think that the biggest thing with the issue about the page fold is that people don't think about their web pages in terms of a narrative, and they should be. Because your web page, especially your home page, should be something that tells a story. It should get people engaged. They should want to scroll down and look at things. I had a graphic up before of an awesome post by Patty Donnelly. It's kind of old, but light below 600 pixels. And in it, he describes this whole idea that, can you believe that people actually scroll? And he even says in there that, if you go to websites like 37 Signals, they start off by saying, like, here's what we offer. And then they go through and talk about, here's some great customers, and here's some testimonials, and here's how you sign up. And by the way, this is what we offer. And it's this nice narrative, and it draws you right down the page. It's a really pleasant experience, and it's not this samey experience that you see on a lot of websites that fall into this above the fold issue. Mobile first is a trend that is just gaining a lot of steam, and it's obviously being driven by the proliferation of mobile devices. Everybody scrolls on a phone. Everybody does. But it also, the good news about mobile first is that it allows you to have a starting place. And if you could start with mobile, it saves you a lot of things that might be problematic later on, because it forces you to think about your content in terms of priority, what's important. You can't just put anything because you don't have a lot of real estate to work with. So it really makes you think in terms of, what do I have to show first? What do I have to show next? How do they relate? And it almost forces you to create a story. So that's a good way to go about it. And I showed before those websites. If you need proof that the fold is a myth, you can just go ahead and show them popular destinations on the web. What you'll see is that these leaders, they don't do that. They don't subscribe to that rule at all. The only thing I will say about the page fold and scrolling is that we've experienced this before. How many of you have been on Pinterest before? And wasted your time for hours, yeah. So the thing about it is, it can be this unwinnable game where you just keep scrolling and it loads more, it keeps scrolling and loads more. That's something you do want to try to avoid, because you need to give people a feel like they can get to the end of something. So you don't want to fall into the opposite side of this, which is the endless scroll. All right. So the next one here is the faceted navigation of doom. This guided navigation or faceted navigation is a very, very useful tool on the web, and we use it all the time. And even our clients and stakeholders use it all the time. They just probably don't realize it. The trouble is that when you get into UX design and information architecture, you have to spend time thinking about how you want to organize your content. And unfortunately, that a lot of times leads to people falling into this mentality of hierarchical organization. Now, I would submit that, all of us, we like organization. Human beings in general, it's a place for everything and everything in its place. We want things to be organized because it makes us feel like we're fighting the good fight against entropy. But the thing of it is, finding the one right path is just never going to work, because we all think differently. And we all have different contexts, whether it's device or it's our preference or mood or the fact that we're searching in different ways. So that's not going to work if you're thinking about it. But that's what gets down to. Most users will want to see it over here. That's what most people are going to think. Well, if that's discounting 20% of your audience, it's 1 in 5 people, and you're really doing them a disservice by not providing an alternate path. Duplicate content also comes up a lot. If you get people in content, they'll scream, duplicate content is going to kill your SEO, which I think is crazy. But nevertheless, why sacrifice the user experience by not providing the same content in another area if it makes sense? If it makes sense, I would err on the side of serving the user rather than serving some search engine. Just to reiterate, a place for everything and everything in its place only works when something falls neatly into one category, and most of the time that doesn't work so well, especially on the web. And if we look at this, now, Endeca is a very popular tool for creating faceted or guided navigation on very popular websites. Best Buy, Home Depot, Lowe's, they all use this technology. And, they have some case studies that I read about, and, including, Kitty Care up here talked about their conversions increasing by 100%. If you need to convince a suit or a C-level person that they should be using guided navigation, there's a real good reason right then. Who doesn't want to sell more product or service? Auto Scout's decrease in no search results found. Have you ever been on a website and you search for something that you were looking for and no search results? What do you do next? If you don't have the content to be searched, then that's going to be a bounce. People are going to leave your site right away. And then, looking at the auto group, look at this, 33%, that's 1 in 3 people had a search failure. That went down to almost none, 0.5%. That's a huge win if you can pull that off. And that is made possible by the fact that Endeca spreads out your content and says, well, there's all these different ways of slicing and dicing it by spreading out the categories. If we look at some of the other places on the web that use this, any of the sports sites. I was just on ESPN. Now, ESPN, MSN, USA Today, they all have sports categories. But once you get into a sport, then it's the team, it's the the division that they play in, it's individual players. There's lots of categories where this stuff kind of mixes and matches. It's not hierarchical at all. And I mentioned before, Home Depot, Target, Best Buy, they all use the Endeca technology. There are others, but this being the most prolific. And that these are highly effective websites. They drive a lot of sales through online, and that's because they're able to get this information out to people in different ways, whether you're searching by price, by screen size, by whatever. That's all there. And if you've ever used the image search, you know that if you want to search for images and you want to see just line drawings or black and white photos or something that has a lot of blue in it or portrait versus landscape, these are all categories of ways of looking at images which do not fall into single categories very simply at all. So they spend a lot of time thinking about that, and I think we should give them some credit. So again, do we think this one's busted? I think so. Really what I want to look at here is things like search patterns. So Peter Morville's book, Search Patterns, it still rings true today, but he talks about people being in different modes when they come to a website. When they're there, they may be a first-time visitor, and they may know exactly what it is that they're looking for, or maybe not. They might not know exactly what it is they're looking for. They might have some idea, and they might want to kind of explore. And then you'll get people that don't really know what it is that they're looking for, that they're just interested in finding out what you have. Those are 3 types of searches. But that's all first-time visitors. What about people that come back to your site? Those are the people that are going to come back and they want to find something that they already found before. So the context changes dramatically when you think about people being in these different phases. Now, the trouble with a lot of getting this across to your clients and stakeholders is that they're going to say, well, you know, I don't need to do this, because they always put themselves, or they typically put themselves in the place of somebody that's first visiting their website. They don't think about return visitors. I don't know why, but that's just something that doesn't enter their heads a lot of times. And so that taints their judgment a little bit. And I talked before about preference or mood, you know, whether or not somebody's in a hurry, whether or not somebody knows what they want to find versus they're just exploring. Some people like to start with search. Not everybody likes to use navigation, especially if your navigation is very big and you know, I mean, how many times do you go on Amazon.com and just start going down through the departments and picking, you know, you start with the search, right? So that's a very popular way of navigating, so you got to make sure that that's available if that's viable for your website or app. And then balancing the breadth and depth of content. I think this is the thing. When it comes to categories, they're important because they allow us to organize stuff, but they also allow us to say, well, this is related to this is a subcategory, and that's helpful. We all, you know, see that, you know, when it comes to the way that things fit into a category. You look at electronics, televisions, okay, that makes sense. You would expect to find things in a certain place. So that needs to be balanced out. But as soon as the category gets too big, there's too many things in it, then it's information overload. You need to think about how you can break that down. That's really what's important. Bless you. All right. Now the hitchhiker. This is a new one I've been working on. The home page is problematic in a lot of ways, and I hope some of you feel my pain with this one. Here's the thing. The home page for clients is like the holy grail. It's really important. They want to skip everything. They want to see the design right away. They want to see it, and they want to see the homepage design. They don't care about their gallery page or their store page, even if those might be more valuable. They don't care. They want to see the homepage. And they think of it in terms of like the real world. Like this is their big billboard to the world. Everybody's going to see the homepage, even though they may not. You know, and they'll tell you, well, don't worry about the content. Don't worry about, you know, what this is going to look like. Just put placeholder copy in. Lorem ipsum, come on. Well, the problem with that is that when you start designing with lorem ipsum, you start to like kind of miss out on the whole point of the web. I mean, the web is mostly text, as much as we like to think of it as being videos and graphics and everything else. It really is text. It's about communicating with people. And if you don't put text in your designs, then you don't get contextual reference, so people aren't going to understand what things are. It can be problematic, and it happens all the time. And then they like to think of the homepage as the design. This is the design. It's the homepage. And while that's important, I think, for some global elements and other things, a lot of times if you think about it, the homepage doesn't really necessarily have a whole lot other than to say, here's what the rest of the website is. And if you don't know what the rest of the website is, how can you say what's going to be on the homepage? It's kind of counterintuitive, at least to those of us in user experience. So I love this comic by the guys at XKCD, where they have a university website. And here are the things that the university website has on the left here, and on the right, you've got all the things that you're looking for. The only thing that they have in common is the name of the school. So the thing about homepage traffic patterns, over the years when the internet first came out, search was horrible. If you went to Lycos and did a search, you probably weren't going to find that deep page you were looking for. So people went right to websites, and a lot of times the local search on websites worked a lot better. And so they would use that. So the homepage was a good starting point for them. In the last month, I'll just do a poll here. In the last month, how many of you have been on Reddit? On BuzzFeed? Okay, Pinterest? Okay, I got hands for just about everybody here. How many of you been in the last month on the homepages of any of these websites? 1, 2 people, 4, 3. Okay, so the point is, you don't go to the homepages of these websites. Why is that? Well, because a lot of times when you're getting there, it's because somebody sent you something, or you clicked on something in your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed, not because you're actually going to the site, going to the homepage, and diving into the content. And that's increasingly becoming the case with lots of sites. People are coming in through the side doors. And then finally, I just want to talk about the bounce rate. I've worked on tons of client websites and done their analytics for them and had to analyze it. And do you know what the page with the highest bounce rate on nearly every website I've ever worked on is? Anybody want to guess? The homepage. The homepage almost always has the highest bounce rate. Now, that's for lots of different reasons, but the thing of it is, it's hard to have a really good homepage design if you are focusing on the content that builds it up. If somebody gets to the homepage and can't get to that deeper content, they're going to bounce. And so that's why I think it's important. The homepage is definitely important, but not in the way that we think of it as being sort of that, going back to the pageful thing. We got to cram everything on the homepage because we don't want them to actually go anywhere on our website once they get there. So let's look at a couple of examples here. Now there's the good, and personally, this is just personal preference here, but I think Square's site they do a great job. They tell a story with their content. It's very clear up front, like what they do. They draw you down, they give you examples. It's engaging, good use of white space. It's a great design. Healthcare.gov, yeah, sorry. I mean, that was kind of a big fail. At the end of the day, I don't know, you can say what you want about the design, but, it just didn't work all that well. And then there's the ugly. So if you ever want to feel good about your own homepage, just go to the world's worst website ever.com and just do a comparison. This is a great resource that I love to bring up, and it's almost like, by comparison, we're doing great. Look at this. So again, what are we going to say about this one? The homepage, busted. Yeah, this is something now. Now, what's important about the homepage? Because it is important. Here's the thing. You need to have visual hierarchy in your website, and the reason why is because people read. People don't read on the web the way that they read in print. They scan. And by putting visual hierarchy in your page, you create a place for their eyes to go. You draw them in, you get them reading your narrative, you're getting to communicate with them in a way that's not going to work if you've got big blocks of copy and everything looks like it's the same importance. You got to do that to help them know what it is that they need to do next. Your homepage increasingly is not about what your website is about. The content speaks for itself. Your homepage should really be more of a brand statement. That's what it's for. It's there to say who you are. It should say concisely, here's my value proposition. Here's some great things that we do, and here's our products, and I'll go to them. I would submit that if you can get somebody on your website and spend as little amount of time on the homepage as possible, then you've probably succeeded because you've gotten them to what they came there looking for. If they spend a lot of time on your homepage, they might be confused. They might be finding not really seeing what I need, especially if they're pogo sticking back and forth between the homepage and internal pages. Clear navigation, obvious, but making sure that you've got things that make sense. So whether or not that's main navigation, like global navigation, like we're talking about, or even just having things directly in the page itself, stuff that says, "Take me to the products. I want to see your service. I need to talk to somebody." Those things need to get the people to what they're looking for. And having what's new. So your content on your homepage should be new. It should be pulling in stuff that, hey, if you've got a new release or you've got a new piece of information for people, they should be able to get to that and see that right away. That's kind of important rather than they always come in, it's always the same old, same old. And what to do next. They need to tell them what to do next. If they read through and go, oh, this is pretty cool, I want to find out more, that's what you want them doing. So that's what the homepage is all about. All right. Let's see, I think we're on to the... All right, this is the last one, and then we can have some discussion. So, white space is it's kind of a double-edged sword, and I'll explain why in a second. But here's the thing: white space is a lot of times abused by those of us that don't practice this craft a lot, and that is whenever. How many of you heard "make the logo bigger" from your clients? Yeah, okay, that's a common one. All right, yeah. So here's the thing: when you have white space, they'll tell you things like, "Well, can't we put an email sign up over here?" Or we want to advertise our new product right here, over underneath the navigation. It's a cousin of the page fold, and I say that. Because what happens is when you're using white space effectively on a page, it looks like there's room for more content, and they want to get it up above the fold. So that's where you run into problems. But here's, I think, some things about white space that I think help when it comes to talking to your clients. Now this is the analytical side of it, right? So they did a study at Wichita State where they took some college students and they had them read some ACT and SAT passages, and they took out all the white space. No margin, no headings, nothing. It was just blocks of copy. And this is an interesting result, and I want to explain it a little bit first. So when they tested their reading speed and comprehension, it turns out that after they put in headings and space and margins and whatnot, and introducing the white space into the page, they were able to increase their reading comprehension by 12.5%, which is pretty significant. But what they found was that there was a decrease of about 25 words per minute in their reading speed. Now that might seem like a bad thing at first, but if you think about it, it's not. Because what it means is that people are taking their time to read something when they aren't just jumping right to the next thing, because they can't tell where to stop and where to start. And that's probably why that happened. And I would submit that it's more important that somebody understands what you're writing than how fast they read it. So think about white space in real life. Google homepage is a great example of this. There's no ads, there's no, hey, here's all the other services we offer. It's like, you're here to do a search, here you go. That's all they have on their site. It works great, right? Or if you've been to the Apple store, there's lots of, it's areas, but unless it's really crowded because they've just released the new iPhone or something. But there's a lot of white space in real life here when you go to these places. So I think that this exists all over the place in very good form. So just to say, I think that this is busted only because of the fact that when you look at white space and see that how it's used effectively, you need to think about this. White space increases readability. It means that if you've got a value prop that you're putting on to your website or your app of what to do next and those kinds of things, if you clutter it up, people are going to miss that. And you don't want that. You want them to understand what it is you're trying to get them to see. So you need to be concise, you need to be specific, and get them to the point. You want to stay consistent with it. So don't be all like, hey, you've got this nice design homepage, and then cram all your content into your internal pages because you just want to write books and books of stuff. Make sure that it's there because, again, people are going to skim. When they get to something they want to read, make sure that you're selecting fonts that have a good line height and space and readability on the web so that they can get through and read your content effectively. And then, the final thing, and this is really where you can hook anybody that's a doubter of how to use white space effectively. Think about any time that you've seen a product page in a magazine that for a sports car or some kind of Tiffany's jewelry or an expensive perfume. Almost always, if you think about it, you see the product there on the page and there's nothing around. There's maybe a gradient background or you've got the car out sort of in the middle of a big landscape. There's nothing around it. There's a lot of negative space or white space there. And the reason why they do that, because they figured out a long time ago, is that this connotates this idea of sophistication and luxury. Like, this is a really valuable thing. And we don't want to, we want to make it appear, very clean, and there's nothing kind of getting in the way, competing with it, because it's so important. And that's how white space is used effectively, in my experience. And if you talk to somebody that's a doubter, if they're a client or stakeholder, they're going to see like, oh yeah, our product really is. It's really important. It's really sophisticated. And that's all I have today. So thank you for coming out. As I said, if you want to tweet me or email me, I'll check those in a second, and we'll pick a couple of random winners. But in the meantime, I'd like to take some questions from the audience.